Elena Voss boarded the luxury space liner without a sound. No one noticed her. No one cared. She wore a plain gray coat, simple shoes, and carried just one small bag. Around her, the ship's grand entrance sparkled with gold and silver. Rich passengers walked proudly, showing off their expensive clothes and jewelry. They laughed loudly, talking about their fortunes, their parties, their power. Elena kept her head down. She didn't need their attention. Not yet. The guards barely looked at her as she passed through security. One of them, a tall man with sharp eyes, smirked when he saw her old bag. "First-class guests only," he said loudly so others could hear. Some passengers turned and stared. A few even chuckled. Elena showed her ticket. First class, real and official. The guard's face tightened. He scanned it twice, then 3 times. He looked back at her with suspicion. "Strange," he muttered under his breath. "You don't look the type." Elena said nothing. She simply smiled, soft and calm. Inside, she felt the familiar sting. It wasn't the first time people judged her, and it would not be the last. She walked down the grand hallway. Huge paintings lined the walls. Golden lights hung from the ceiling. Everything was built to impress the rich and powerful. Around her, passengers whispered. Some laughed quietly behind her back. Maybe she won the lottery, one man joked. Or she's someone's servant, a woman said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Elena heard every word. She let it pass like a cold wind. At the dining hall, a young waiter accidentally bumped into her. "Watch it," he snapped, without even looking up. Another passenger nearby laughed. "Careful," he said to the waiter, pointing at Elena. "She might cry." More laughter filled the room. Elena sat at a small table in a corner. She ordered a simple meal, just bread and water. The waiter rolled his eyes but served her quickly. All the while, Elena stayed silent. She watched. She listened. No one knew who she really was. No one imagined what she had come to do. The ship, the Imperial Dawn, was famous. It carried the wealthiest families across galaxies. Powerful business leaders, corrupt politicians, greedy investors, all enjoying their floating palace. But they had one thing in common. They had all once betrayed the Voss family. And tonight, Elena was here to repay that debt. As the ship prepared for takeoff, a guard walked past her table again. He looked at her small meal, her simple dress, and smiled cruelly. "You don't belong here," he said, loud enough for others to hear. Several people laughed. A few clapped softly, as if cheering the insult. Elena looked up at the guard, her face calm. Her eyes, however, were cold, like frozen steel. She said nothing. She only raised her wrist slightly, just enough for her bracelet to catch the light. It looked like a simple piece of jewelry, but hidden inside was something much more dangerous. With one gentle press of her thumb against a tiny, hidden button, a silent signal was sent. A signal only a few trusted people in the galaxy would recognize. Plan Zero was now active. Elena smiled again, a little wider this time. The guard frowned, suddenly feeling uncomfortable, though he didn't know why. He turned and walked away, muttering to himself. Elena picked up her bread and took a small bite, savoring it slowly. Above her, the ship's engines roared to life. The room shook slightly as the Imperial Dawn lifted into space, carrying its cargo of greed and cruelty into the stars. None of them knew their time at the top was about to end. None of them saw the storm that was coming. And at the heart of it all sat the quiet woman they had mocked, smiling, waiting, and ready. In just a few hours, Elena Voss would tear down everything they had built. She would leave them in ruins. And it would all start with one simple push of a button. The Imperial Dawn floated through space like a shining jewel. Inside, laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses filled the air. The rich were busy enjoying their fake paradise. None of them noticed the small red light blinking quietly inside Elena's bracelet. Elena sat at her corner table, patient and calm. She watched everything. The way the guards moved, the way the guests acted, where the cameras were hidden. Every detail mattered. Tonight was not about revenge only. It was about justice. Real, unforgettable justice. Some of the richest men on the ship were not just greedy. They were cruel. They had destroyed families, stolen planets, and even ordered assassinations to stay in power. One of those families had been hers. Elena Voss had once been a princess in a world they crushed under their boots. Now, they thought she was nothing more than a poor nobody. They were wrong. Very wrong. The main ballroom opened its giant crystal doors for the welcome gala. Golden lights spilled out. Music played from an orchestra of robots. Servants in black suits lined the walls, carrying silver trays of food and drink. Elena walked in quietly. Heads turned. Some laughed again. Some whispered. But no one really cared. They should have. At the center of the room stood Governor Rendell Meyer, the richest and most corrupt man in 3 systems. He wore a deep blue cape and had a smile as fake as plastic. Next to him was Admiral Juno Raz, the woman who had led the attack on Elena's homeworld. And near them, drinking and laughing, was Baron Hess, a man who once ordered the execution of Elena's parents. All of them together. All of them thinking they were untouchable. Elena's heart pounded once, just once, and then settled into a cold, steady beat. She walked past the tables, moving closer. No one stopped her. No one even noticed. Governor Meyer raised a glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said loudly, "a toast to endless success and endless riches." Cheers echoed through the room. At that moment, Elena stopped walking. She stood right in the middle of the ballroom. She raised her hand and pressed a second hidden button on her bracelet. The music stopped. The lights flickered. The giant screens around the ballroom flashed. At first, people thought it was just part of the party. They laughed. They clapped. But then the screen showed something different. Footage. Real, horrifying footage. Bombings ordered by Admiral Raz. Children crying on ruined streets under Governor Meyer's rule. Executions signed by Baron Hess. Gasps filled the room. Whispers turned into shouting. "What is this? Turn it off. Who did this?" Guards rushed toward the control panels. They tried to shut off the screens, but found they were locked out. Panic started to grow. Governor Meyer shouted, "Find who's responsible. Find them now." His face was red with anger and fear. Slowly, Elena walked up a few steps to the front of the room. All eyes turned to her. Some guests laughed nervously, thinking it was some sick joke. But when they saw her face, calm, cold, and fearless, the laughter died. "You don't know me," Elena said, her voice strong and clear. "But I know all of you." The room fell silent. "You destroyed my home," she continued. "You killed my family. You stole everything you could," and laughed about it. She pointed at the screens, still playing the crimes for everyone to see. "Tonight, the galaxy will see the truth." Guards rushed toward her. Governor Meyer barked, "Seize her." But before they could reach her, a loud bang shook the ship. The walls trembled. The floor shifted. People screamed. Outside the windows, dark shapes appeared. Small, fast ships, black as night, surrounded the Imperial Dawn. Plan Zero was in full motion. Elena smiled. "You thought you could run forever," she said softly. "But justice always catches up." The side doors burst open. Dozens of figures in black armor poured into the ballroom. They moved like shadows, silent and unstoppable. They wore no logos, no flags. They served only one mission: expose the corrupt. The guests screamed. Some tried to run. Others begged for mercy. The black-armored soldiers ignored them. They moved toward the main targets, the real monsters. Governor Meyer, Admiral Raz, Baron Hess, all of them tried to hide behind their bodyguards. It didn't matter. Their guards were no match. Within minutes, The soldiers had them surrounded. Shackles snapped closed around their wrists. Devices were planted on their necks. Trackers and truth serum injectors. There would be no escape. No lies. No bribes. Not this time. Elena walked slowly up to Governor Meyer. He sneered at her. "You think you're better than us. You're just a terrorist." Elena looked him in the eye. "No," she said. "I'm something you can't buy. I'm justice." Governor Meyer struggled and cursed as the soldiers dragged him away. Admiral Ross and Baron Hess fought too, but it was useless. Their power was gone. Their empire of lies was crumbling. The black ships outside sent a signal to every major news network in the galaxy. The footage of the crimes, the live feed of the arrests, everything was broadcast in real time. Billions of people watched. Billions cheered. Later, Elena stood alone at the ship's giant viewing window. The stars stretched out before her, endless and beautiful. The Imperial Dawn, once a symbol of corruption, now drifted quietly under new control. Elena removed her bracelet and dropped it onto the floor. It was no longer needed. Plan Zero was complete. A young soldier approached her. "Commander Voss," he said respectfully, "the operation is a success. Orders." Elena turned to him. Her face, once filled with grief, now showed only strength. "Take them to trial," she said. "Let the galaxy decide their fate." The soldier saluted. He left without another word. Elena looked once more at the endless stars. Her journey wasn't over. There were still many others like Governor Meyer out there, hiding, stealing, killing. But they wouldn't be safe for long. Not anymore. Because tonight, the galaxy learned one simple truth. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Especially not Elena Voss. The galaxy was waking up. Across thousands of worlds, news spread like wildfire. The fall of Governor Meyer, Admiral Ross, and Baron Hess shook the powerful like an earthquake. For the first time in decades, the elite were scared. They realized that someone out there was no longer afraid of them. Someone had dared to strike back. Someone named Elena Voss. But Elena knew this was just the beginning. The ones she captured were important, yes, but they were only puppets. The real danger was still hiding in the shadows. The real masters had yet to show their faces, and Elena would find them, no matter what it cost. Inside the command room of her ship, the Silent Star, Elena stood before a glowing table. It showed maps of secret space routes, hidden bases, and heavily guarded cities. Red marks blinked on the map, showing targets she needed to reach. Her team waited silently around her. They trusted her completely. Each of them had lost something to the corrupt leaders of the galaxy. Each of them had chosen to follow Elena because she fought for real justice. Not money, not fame. Elena touched a red dot on the map. It zoomed in, showing a station floating near the edge of known space. Station Blackreach. "Here," Elena said quietly. "The real masters meet here. Hidden, untouchable, or so they think." Her second in command, a woman named Sora Hale, frowned. "Blackreach is a fortress," she said. "Private armies, shield walls, spy drones everywhere." Elena smiled slightly. "Good. Let them feel safe. That will be their mistake." A murmur of agreement went around the room. They had seen Elena work before. When she made a plan, it didn't fail. 3 days later, the Silent Star drifted near Blackreach, hidden by a cloaking field. Through the thick windows, Elena and Sora studied the massive station. It was larger than 10 cities combined, bristling with weapons and defense systems. Thousands of ships flew in and out like bees around a hive. "Looks impossible," Sora said. "Almost," Elena agreed. "But not if you know where to look." Elena pointed to a small maintenance bay hidden near the base of the station. An old, forgotten entrance. No cameras, no guards, just dust and shadows. They had a way in. Hours later, under the cover of darkness, a small team of 6 dropped from the Silent Star in stealth pods. They floated through space, silent and invisible, toward the hidden entrance. Alina's heart beat calmly in her chest. She had trained for this. She had lived for this. When her feet touched the cold metal of Blackreach, she didn't feel fear. She felt purpose. They cut through a weak panel and slipped inside. No alarms, no alerts. Inside, the station was a maze of corridors, pipes, and metal walls. But Alina's team moved like shadows. They avoided patrols, disabled cameras, silently took down guards who stumbled into their path. Every step brought them closer to the heart of Blackreach, the place called the Circle Room. It was where the true masters met in secret, the ones who controlled governors, admirals, and barons like puppets. After 2 hours of creeping through the belly of the station, they reached a giant circular door. Alina held up her hand, signaling stop. She placed a small disc on the door. It hissed softly and started to hack the locks. Minutes later, the heavy door slid open silently. Inside, the circle room gleamed with gold and silver. A giant round table stood in the center, surrounded by tall, rich-looking figures in velvet cloaks. Their faces were hidden by elegant masks, some shaped like lions, others like eagles, snakes, and wolves. The true rulers of the galaxy. The real monsters behind the curtain. They didn't see Alina yet. They were too busy arguing. "Voss must be found and destroyed," shouted a masked man, slamming his hand on the table. "She has already exposed 3 of our best assets," barked another. "This is unacceptable." Alina stepped forward, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. "Looking for me?" The masters froze. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then chaos exploded. Guards hidden in the walls rushed forward. Weapons were drawn. Alarms screamed. But Alina was ready. Her team opened fire with stun rounds, dropping guards before they could reach them. Gas grenades filled the room, making it hard to see. Screams echoed off the walls. Alina moved through the smoke like a ghost, her weapon aimed straight at the masked leaders. One by one, she forced them to the ground, cuffing their hands behind their backs. Some begged. Some tried to bribe her with promises of gold and planets. Some cursed her name. It didn't matter. She ignored it all. When the smoke cleared, the masters of the galaxy knelt before her, helpless and defeated. But it wasn't over yet. As Alina secured the last prisoner, a soft mechanical click echoed behind her. She turned and faced the largest figure in the room, a man in a dark serpent mask. He held a hidden weapon, a small plasma blade, glowing deadly blue. "You think you've won," he hissed. "You're a fool. Cut off 1 head, and 2 more will take its place." He lunged. Fast. Deadly. But Alina was faster. In one swift move, she ducked, twisted, and slammed the man's arm against the wall. The plasma blade clattered to the floor. Alina pinned him down with a knee on his back. "I'm not here to cut off heads," Alina said quietly. "I'm here to burn the whole system down." The serpent-masked man struggled for a moment, then went still. Sora stepped up beside Alina. "Commander's orders." Alina looked at the defeated leaders. All their masks had fallen to the ground, revealing faces the galaxy knew. Senators, CEOs, warlords. They had ruled from the shadows for too long. The galaxy burned with change. The masters of Blackreach had fallen. Their crimes were exposed to every world, every citizen. Cities once silent with fear now echoed with the voices of the free. Old leaders were dragged from their palaces. Statues crumbled. New banners rose. And at the center of it all was one name, whispered like a storm: Alina Voss. But victory always brings new enemies, especially from the places no one can see. Especially from the shadows. Alina knew it was coming. She could feel it in the coldness of the stars. The real war, the dark war, was just beginning. Aboard the Silent Star, Alina stood in front of a large, cracked mirror in her quarters. Her reflection stared back, worn, hardened, tired. She brushed a hand through her dark hair, noticing the new scars along her neck and arms. There was no going back to the woman she used to be. She didn't want to. Behind her, Sora Hale entered quietly. She carried a small holopad glowing with urgent messages. "You're not going to like this," Sora said carefully. "I rarely do," Elena replied dryly. "Tell me." Sora handed her the pad. One by one, names appeared on the screen. Names Elena recognized. Survivors. Leaders who had escaped the fall of Blackreach. And worse, new enemies. The messages spoke of a new alliance forming in the dark. The survivors had gone underground, gathering mercenaries, warlords, exiled generals, and pirate kings. They called themselves the Silent Fist. Their goal was simple: crush Elena Voss, restore the old rule, reclaim the stars. "They're calling you the Witch of Stars now," Sora added with a faint smile. "They think you're cursed." Elena's lips curved into a small, humorless smile. "Let them think what they want," she said. "But we can't fight shadows with hope alone." She tapped the pad, pulling up locations, hidden bases, secret meeting places, safe houses. "They want a war," Elena said quietly. "Let's give them one." The next weeks turned brutal. Across abandoned moons and shattered asteroids, the battles began. Silent Fist forces struck fast and hard, burning rebel cities, poisoning free trade routes, assassinating young leaders rising to power. In response, Elena and her team fought like wolves. They sabotaged weapon convoys. They freed prisoner camps. They dismantled communication lines. Each battle left scars. Each victory cost blood. The Silent Fist was smart. They didn't fight fair. They used the innocent as shields. They set traps that cost Elena good people. There were nights when Elena stood alone on the bridge of her ship, fists clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Every death felt like a knife twisting in her chest. She had started this war to free the galaxy. Now it sometimes felt like she was drowning in endless violence. "Commander," Sora said one evening, approaching her carefully, "we found something." Elena turned slowly, her face unreadable. Sora brought up a hologram, a transmission. It was cracked and full of static, but Elena recognized the voice. A voice she hadn't heard in years. A voice from a past she tried to bury. "Elena, it's me. It's Aaron. They have me. Black Site V9. Please, if you're out there." The message ended in a scream. Elena's world tilted. Aaron Voss, her brother. She had thought he was dead. Killed in the first wave of betrayals that destroyed their home. Killed by the same masters she had just exposed. But he was alive. And he was a prisoner of the Silent Fist. Elena's hand shook slightly, the first crack in her armor in a long time. But her voice stayed cold. "Plot a course for Black Site V9, she ordered. "We leave now." Black Site V9 was a nightmare floating in deep space, a forgotten prison hidden inside a dead moon. No sunlight. No visitors. No mercy. The Silent Fist used it for those they needed broken. Rebels, scientists, defectors. Torture chambers and brainwashing rooms filled its dark halls. As the Silent Star approached, alarms started blaring across the base. Elena didn't care. "This time," she told her team, "no sneaking. We storm the gates." The Silent Star fired first, ripping through the outer defenses with brutal precision. Landing pods slammed into the prison walls. Elena and her fighters poured out, weapons blazing. Guards rushed to stop them, but they were unprepared for the fury Elena unleashed. She fought like a storm, moving from cover to cover, never hesitating. Her team followed, unstoppable. Inside the prison, the air was thick with smoke and blood. Elena kicked open door after door, calling her brother's name. Finally, deep inside the lowest level, she found him. Aaron was chained to a wall, his face bruised and bleeding. His eyes barely opened when he heard footsteps. He looked up, expecting more pain. Instead, he saw her. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Neither spoke. The galaxy seemed to stop moving. Then, with a broken sob, Aaron whispered, "Ellie, you're real." Alina dropped her weapon and ran to him, tearing at the chains with shaking hands. "I'm here," she said fiercely. "I'm not leaving you again." When the chains fell, Aaron collapsed into her arms. She held him tightly, tears burning her eyes. For the first time in years, Alina Voss, the Witch of Stars, the terror of Blackreach, wept openly. But there was no time for softness. Behind her, explosions rocked the prison. Silent Fist reinforcements were arriving fast. Sora's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Commander, you need to get out now. Whole fleets incoming." Alina gritted her teeth. She slung Aaron's arm over her shoulder. "Move," she shouted to her team. "Fall back to the Silent Star." They fought their way through collapsing corridors and walls of flame. Blaster shots tore through the air. Men and women fell, some dying to buy seconds for the others. Alina carried her brother through it all. She wouldn't let go. Not this time. The Silent Fist thought they had broken her. They were wrong. The rescue of Aaron Voss had been a spark. Now it had become a wildfire. Across the galaxy, rebels were rising. Hidden bases of the Silent Fist burned. Traitors were dragged into the light. But Alina Voss knew it wasn't enough. If she didn't end this soon, more innocent blood would be spilled. The Silent Fist would grow smarter, stronger. They would tear apart everything she had fought for. It was time to finish what she started. No more running. No more hiding. She would set a trap so big, so loud, that the Silent Fist would come to her. And when they did, she would destroy them completely. On the bridge of the Silent Star, Alina stood before her team. Sora Hale, Captain Bren, Tech Officer Michael. These people had become her family. She told them her plan. It was simple and deadly. They would leak information. False messages would be spread through hidden channels. The rumors would say that Alina Voss had found a hidden vault, one filled with weapons strong enough to destroy fleets, a vault guarded by only a handful of ships. Greed would pull the Silent Fist in. They wouldn't be able to resist. And when they came, they would find not a vault, but a battlefield prepared just for them, a graveyard of their own making. "You're risking everything," Sora said quietly after hearing the plan. Alina nodded. "I know. What if it fails?" Alina smiled, that cold, dangerous smile that had scared emperors and kings. "Then we fall fighting. But we make sure they fall with us." Silence filled the bridge. Then, one by one, every member of her crew nodded. They would stand with her. To the end. The trap was set. The Silent Star moved to an ancient battlefield, a dead zone from a war fought centuries ago. Wrecked starships floated like silent ghosts. Asteroid fields and gravitational storms made it a nightmare for any fleet, perfect for an ambush. Hidden inside the wreckage, Alina's forces waited. Thousands of rebel ships. New allies, secret defectors, mercenary fleets loyal to her cause. All cloaked, all silent, all ready. The bait message spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Alina Voss has uncovered the Vault of Infinity. Ultimate power for whoever takes it. Within hours, the Silent Fist fleets moved, just as she had hoped. They came in waves, black ships with blood-red banners. Warlords leading thousands of warriors hungry for revenge. Pirate captains, rogue admirals, and shadow assassins, the largest fleet Alina had ever seen. Good. She wanted them all here. In one place, easy to crush. Inside the Silent Star's command center, Alina watched the enemy approach. Her heart pounded hard in her chest, not with fear, but with focus. She turned to her crew. "This is it," she said. "No second chances. We end them today, or we die trying." Across every rebel ship, commanders gave the same order. Weapons charged. Engines roared. The battlefield crackled with tension. Silence. Then the first enemy ship fired. The trap was sprung. Attack. Elena roared. The battlefield exploded into chaos. Rebel ships uncloaked from every direction. They attacked the silent fist from all sides, surprise and fury in every blast. Mines hidden inside the wreckage ripped through enemy cruisers. Asteroids, wired with explosives, shattered ships like glass. Wrecked battleships, once dead and floating, came alive with hidden guns, tearing into the enemy lines. It was beautiful, and it was hell. Elena's ship led the charge. She fought like a demon, her hands flying across controls, barking orders with deadly calm. Sora worked beside her, sharp and fearless. The silent fist, trapped and confused, fought back hard. Blaster fire turned the blackness of space into a burning sea of light. Ships exploded in every direction. Men and women screamed across broken comms. But Elena didn't blink. She pushed forward, deeper into the heart of the enemy. She was looking for one ship, the flagship of the Silent Fist, the ship of the man who had ordered her brother's torture, the man behind the assassinations and betrayals, Admiral Raz. She would face him today, and she would end him. The Silent Star tore through enemy lines, dodging missiles, punching through fighters. Finally, Elena saw it, a massive dreadnought covered in black steel, blood-red lights burning across its hull. The flagship. Target locked, Michael said, sweat pouring down his face. Fire everything, Elena ordered. Missiles streaked across the void. Cannons blasted holes through the enemy's shields. The Silent Star took hits too, massive hits that rocked the ship and threw crew members from their seats. Warning alarms screamed. Smoke filled the air. But Elena didn't stop. She pressed forward, driving straight into the heart of the storm. Boarding pods ready, Sora shouted over the noise. Elena grabbed her helmet, her gun, her blade. "With me," she ordered. And then they launched. The boarding pods slammed into the dreadnought's hull. Doors blew open. Elena and her fighters stormed inside. The hallways were a killing field. Silent Fist soldiers rushed to stop them. But Elena was unstoppable. She moved like a force of nature, precise, merciless. Her blade flashed. Her gun roared. Room by room, deck by deck, they fought their way toward the bridge. Bodies littered the halls. Blood stained the walls. The dreadnought shook with every explosion. At last, they reached the final door. The bridge. Admiral Raz stood inside, waiting. He was tall, armored, cruel-eyed. A scar ran down the side of his face. "You should have stayed in the shadows, Elena Voss," he sneered. "You should have killed me when you had the chance," Elena answered coldly. And then she attacked. The fight was brutal. Raz was strong, stronger than she expected. He wielded a plasma sword, swinging it with deadly skill. But Elena had something stronger than strength. She had rage. She had purpose. She had nothing left to lose. They clashed, blade against blade, sparks flying. Blaster shots tore across the bridge, missing by inches. Finally, Elena found her opening. She ducked under Raz's swing and drove her blade into his side. He gasped, staggered, and Elena didn't stop. She ripped off his helmet, grabbed him by the throat, and slammed him against the command console. "For my brother," she said, voice trembling with fury. And she ended it. Outside, the Silent Fist fleet shattered. With their leader dead, their lines broke. Rebel forces mopped up the survivors. The battlefield became a graveyard. But it was their graveyard now. Elena stood on the ruined bridge of the dreadnought, blood dripping from her armor. Her team stood with her, battered, burned, alive. It was over. The Silent Fist was finished. The galaxy was free. Elena Voss had won. But as she looked out the broken window, seeing the wreckage floating in the stars, she knew one thing clearly. Freedom was never free. and peace would always need people willing to fight for it. She would stay ready, always, because in the deep dark of the universe, there were always more shadows waiting. The battlefield was silent. Wreckage drifted through space like broken bones of titans. Smoke curled from shattered hulls. Lifeless enemy cruisers floated, stripped of their power, their flags torn. The silent fist was no more. Their empire, built on fear, torture, and greed, had ended in fire. And at the center of it all stood one woman, Elena Voss. Blood stained her armor. Her eyes were hollow with exhaustion. But she stood tall, like a monument carved in war. She had survived, and she had won. In the days that followed the battle, messages flooded every system. Systems long enslaved by the silent fist were now free. Prisoners were rescued. Hidden camps were shut down. The galaxy buzzed with one name: Elena, the woman who came from nowhere, the one who boarded a luxury ship quietly, mocked, insulted, and ignored. And now they called her the Ghost Commander, the Flame of Resistance, the Queen of Ruins. But Elena didn't care about names. All she wanted was peace. On board the Silent Star, repair crews worked nonstop. The ship was barely holding together. In the medbay, Aaron Voss lay recovering. His body was weak, but his eyes were alive again. Elena sat beside him, holding his hand. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe. "I thought I'd lost you forever," she whispered. Aaron gave a small smile. "You didn't. You came back." Tears slid down Elena's cheek. "I'll never leave again." They didn't speak after that. They didn't need to. Sometimes silence was the loudest thing in the world. In the main hall, leaders from across the stars had gathered. Admirals, governors, rebels, scientists, all people who had once bowed to the silent fist, now stood with Elena. The room buzzed with debate. Who would lead now? What system should replace the broken empire? Could peace truly hold? Elena listened quietly for a long time. Then she stepped forward, and the room went still. "I didn't fight to build a throne," she said, voice steady. "I fought to break the chains. That's all." A man in golden robes stepped forward. "Then who will lead us?" Elena looked at him, and then at the crowd. "You will, all of you, together. If power belongs to one person, then war always returns. Share it, watch each other, protect the people." A murmur swept through the crowd. Some nodded, some looked unsure, but no one could argue with her. She had done the impossible. She had bled for them, and she was not asking for a crown. She was giving them a chance. Later that night, Elena stood on the observation deck alone. Below her, 1,000 ships were leaving the battlefield, heading home, heading toward peace. Sora Hale joined her, 2 cups of synth tea in hand. "You could have ruled the galaxy," Sora said softly. Elena smiled and took the cup. "I never wanted it." "You sure? You'd make a terrifying empress." Elena laughed, the sound soft and strange in her throat. She hadn't laughed in months. "No, I've seen what power does. I don't want to become the thing I destroyed." They sipped tea in silence. Then Sora spoke again. "People are building statues of you already. They say you're a legend." Elena didn't respond, because legends didn't bleed like she did. Legends didn't cry alone in the dark. She wasn't a legend. She was just tired. So very tired. Weeks passed. Elena oversaw the rebuilding of key systems. She helped reunite families. She visited wounded soldiers. She shook hands with leaders. She forgave old enemies who had switched sides to join her in the end. She worked harder than ever. But deep inside, she knew it couldn't last. Peace was blooming. The galaxy didn't need a warrior anymore, and she didn't know how to be anything else. One night, Sora entered her quarters to find a message on her desk. A simple note. "Thank you. I've done what I came to do. I need to disappear now, before I become a symbol instead of a person. Elena. Sora dropped the paper and ran to the hangar. Too late. One of the old stealth ships was gone, vanished into the stars without a trace. Elena Voss had walked away. No goodbye. No ceremony. Just silence. The same way she had arrived.